The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel is Joanne Mercier. Hey, Joanne.
Hey, Dom. It's the Apple Kids today.
That's right. Ever since Father Corey left us, he doesn't have to endure the Apple keynote discussions with us. We've had some comments from some listeners like, why do you guys always focus so much on Apple? Well, part of it is that so many of us who are on the panels are Apple people. We use Apple phones and Macs and that sort of thing. But there are those on the panel who aren't, and who use Android and whatnot. So if folks want us to cover other manufacturers to the same level, just let me know, and we'll do our best. I'm not an expert, and since I'm the host, it's hard to sometimes get up to speed on those things, but we'll talk about them if you think that they're worthwhile. So if you let us know, if you want us to talk about the new Google Pixels or the Huawei trifold phone or whatever crazy new gadgets are out there today.
Yeah, I heard about that one. I was like, okay, we can't perfect, just a regular, foldable phone. Now we have to do a trifold. Yeah, okay, good.
It's like the old Gillette razors. Remember that? You're like, it's got 3 blades, 4 blades.
Oh, yes,
it's gonna have. It's going to be like an origami swan eventually, where you fold it 18 times.
And it's waterproof.
It is waterproof. So before we get started talking about today's topics, I do want to mention that another show on the StarQuest Network that folks are sure to enjoy is called Let's Science, which you can find wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/science. All right. So Apple had its annual phone, AirPod, Apple Watch event. We have this every September now. They called it the Glow Up event, which I don't know.
It didn't make any sense. I wasn't quite
The marketers were like, what should we call this one? I don't know. We're not doing anything huge, so we might, we're just going to polish things a little bit. So let's call it the Glow Up. We're just going to glow it up. Okay. It's a very TikTok-y Gen Z phrase. So let's do that.
That's where that came from.
Oh yeah. Glow up means to like a makeover, that sort of thing. So, I don't know why. I don't know where it comes from, but I just know I'm around enough of that stuff that I know the term.
Good for you.
All right. So, let's move away from the Gen Z and Boomer lack of pop culture knowledge and move into something we know a little bit more about and talk about some of the stuff that Apple announced. In general, what's your takeaway of what they announced in broad terms?
It was definitely a refresher for some things. Mm-hmm. I got a little confused with the AirPod Pros, but now all is good. I sorted that out. Yeah. And since I am in the market for a phone this year, I was supposed to get one last year, but then we had 2 cars that we needed to buy. So now this year it gets postponed. I'm really glad I waited because I think this is going to be a really interesting upgrade because I have a 13. So I don't even have a dynamic island. So
I have the 15 Pro, and from my perspective, just in general, not even just the phones, this was, some nice little upgrades, nothing too revolutionary, nothing too spectacular. There was a lot of speculation in the rumors about bigger changes, but it was I think over the last 5 or 6 years, especially with the phones, if you have a phone that's older than the last year's phone, then it's a decent upgrade.
Right.
And if you have a several years old phone, it's a really good upgrade. And so everything is incremental now until we get the next big leap in technology, like a foldable iPhone or something along those lines, or whatever's the holographic display. Who knows? It's not. I don't think we're going to get you must upgrade from last year sort of feel for things. Not for a while yet.
No, and I think they're really holding back on the foldable phone because Apple hasn't figured out how to make one that doesn't destroy itself, after so many folds. And I think, it's fine when you have an Android phone. No offense, Android phone people, but they're a little bit cheaper than an iPhone. And
some of them are.
Some of them are. And if, you can replace them a little bit better than wanting to replace the old Apple phone that costs you like $1,000 or more.
If foldable Androids are just as expensive as these iPhones, so they're not really less expensive. Yeah, they are. They're still pretty expensive, and that's the thing is that the foldable screen technology is going to get better. It just is. But the question is it's not there yet to what Apple wants apparently. Right. So we'll see how that goes. Well, let's talk about the announcements themselves. They started with the Apple Watch. It's the 10th anniversary of Apple Watch. The first Apple Watches were in 2014, along with Apple Pay, by the way, which was a big deal. And there was a lot of speculation that there would be a big new redesign. It's thinner and slightly larger display.
Thinner, lighter, and larger.
Yes, it's the thinnest, lightest blank that we've ever made. It's like, do they do that on purpose? Like it's a joke, or like did they mean it unironically? Because it's literally every year, everything is the thinnest, lightest, whatever that they've ever made, and it's kind of silly at this point.
They've ever made.
Yes. That of course it is.
Right, because it's
this one is one. Yeah, this one's slightly worse than last year's device.
Yeah, really. Let's see how that would go over. The 10, I looked. I have to say this. My original Apple Watch 0 is still working. Okay, I don't have it. My friends in Italy have it, and it's still working. So
the battery life can't be that great. Yeah.
But then again, it doesn't run all the things that from Series 3 up does. So
that's right.
They're getting decent battery life out of it, but for what they need it for, it's still there. And I heard it was in a slight accident, and they actually glued the top back on, and it's still working. So Apple, you do make a wonderful product, and this is why It's why I stick with Apple. Now this one, the thinner. The only thing I look at it and say, thinner is better, because after wearing an Apple Watch day and night, sometimes it is a little heavy on the wrist, as it is now. So maybe this new one being a little thinner. And did I understand correctly that the back is not all glass on this one? I wasn't sure about that.
It was a little confusing how they described it, whether they were describing it as something. Sometimes the way they describe it, it makes it sound like there's something new, where they're just describing what it is. So to me, it seemed like they're just describing the way it always has been, which is glass and metal back.
Right.
It's 10% thinner, which 10% sounds like a lot, except it's already pretty thin. So I don't know how much, whether it'll be visibly different. It might feel, especially if you have thinner wrists, it might feel a little lighter. So that would be good. One of the things they've done is replace stainless steel option with titanium, and that's certainly going to be lighter than stainless steel. I've always gone for aluminum. I don't need that fancy thing. There is no new Ultra this year, except just a new color, the satin black, which looks nice, and new bands. They always do new bands. The big thing in the watch, though, is since the software, they have more water sports related activity tracking. Yes. So if you're into canoeing and rowing, and even like tide charts or something, and that sort of stuff. So
I thought that was interesting.
Nice. Yeah, as I've said before, I'm involved in scouting, so all of that water-related stuff, there's a lot of water stuff in scouting, is kind of interesting to me. The one thing that really interested me was the forthcoming more health tracking options, like sleep apnea tracking. That was very interesting. My doctor has kind of talked about, you might have sleep apnea. You need to, maybe we need to do a sleep study, and when a sleep study, you got to go to a clinic, you sleep there overnight. It's a huge hassle.
Been there, done that.
Like with this, at least, you'd probably still have to do that. Your doctor is not going to rely on your watch to diagnose you, but this may be enough to say, hey, by the way, you really ought to go get this checked out and then go do it. And I like that about the health stuff on the Apple Watch. It's more often, hey, get this checked, and then it finds something that you need to deal with. I think that there's been a lot of that. I don't sleep with my Apple Watch, but this sort of thing, I have a sleep tracking pad that goes under the mattress. I've had for years. I think it was a Withings device, but I might sleep with my Apple Watch if once this comes around, just to see, sleep with it, throw it on the charger for an hour in the morning while I take my shower, and then, it'll go all day.
As someone who has had the sleep test, only to find out, well, maybe you could take a sleep aid because you wake up too much in the night. You don't have sleep apnea. I was like, great. So now you want to prescribe sleeping pills. I'm not into that. This might be a game changer for folks who are kind of like on the line.
Yeah.
It'll say either you are or you aren't. I find sleeping with a watch is a bit cumbersome, even though it's on the left, and I'm not going to hit my husband with it on the right. So that's also good. But it wakes me up sometimes. Not that it's doing anything. It's just on my arm.
Just as something there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I see the benefits of sleeping with it. Like when I had COVID, I slept with it for a while just to make sure the oxygen was okay. And that kind of thing. I do it for periods of time to check on sleep habit or something, but I don't do it all the time. But the sleep apnea, I don't need a new watch this year. I've got a Series 8, so I'll probably hang on. And the next time I get it, it will come in handy. Although the next time I get it, the blood oxygen will probably be gone. It's a trade-off.
Right. The patent problem that they've had.
Right.
Yeah, they said the sleep tracking, the apnea tracking will be available on the 9, which is what I have. Right. I really want an Ultra. I really love the outdoors related stuff of that. But the expense was what made me get the Series 9.
Well, if you want something bigger, this one is the bigger one of the 10 is supposed to be slightly bigger than the Ultra, which I don't get. It's like, wow, what do you want?
Yeah.
This on your wrist? I mean, is this what we're talking about here?
Slightly bigger display, because the display doesn't go necessarily to the very edge of the physical body, and I think they've made the display a little bigger without making the physical body a little bigger or something like that. Whereas the Ultra has some big borders around it to market. So
I think until we see it in our hands, we won't understand what that means, quite frankly.
So the Apple Watch, not a lot new there. So it's if you're in the market, if you have a Series 7 or older, even a Series 8, then maybe something you're looking at. AirPods 4. So the big thing in the AirPods realm is everything is now USB-C charging. Goodbye Lightning port. In fact, I think apart from some iPads, like everything they announced today is USB-C. In this keynote is USB-C. So we're really moving away from Lightning at a rapid pace.
I think so. And it really does cut down on how many cords are you bringing when you go somewhere, depending on which device you're bringing to what thing.
Right. And USB-C is a more widely accepted standard. I want to get rid of mini and micro USB. I hate those cables. I wish we could get rid of all those. Yeah, all the cheap knockoffs, the cheap stuff, the cheap electronics, I'll still use it. Yeah.
But in my opinion, I think they've made AirPod shopping more complicated, more confusing, because you have the AirPods 4, then you have the AirPods ANC, which is active noise canceling, which is sort of like the middle ground, and then you have the AirPods Pro 2. Which is already out, and this is where I was getting confused.
Not a new version, right?
Right. I was like, okay, so are these features? Do I get these features? Do I not get that? Because I have it too. I have a AirPods Pro 2, and I'm like, what features do I get? So now I got it all straight.
Right. But, so you get the new AirPods 4, which is there's not a lot new there. They've redesigned the shape a little bit.
They've shortened the
stem.
The stem is a little shorter.
Yeah. Okay. They've got the USB-C. They've talking about adaptive audio and transparency, which they've kind of talked about already, but maybe that was at WWDC, so it's coming to all of these devices. And then they have this active noise cancellation model of the lower end, which is good. The active noise cancellation was only in the Pro before, so now you can get it at the for slightly less. And AirPods Max at the high end, which hasn't had any updates in the years since it's been introduced, I think 2 years, 3 years, except now you have new colors.
Yep.
And it's USB-C, and still pretty much the same otherwise.
And still $549 and out of the reach of most people who'd want cans on their heads.
Yeah, well, I mean that is, I can buy noise canceling headphones for my kids all have them, noise canceling over the ear headphones for $60. I get them from Anchor. It's right. Just, I mean, I get there are audiophiles, and for audiophile headphones, that's not a bad price. I mean, there are ones that are 3 times that you can buy out there, headphones. But so I guess that's what they're going for with those. But those aren't for normal people.
Right. And I think, the normal AirPods are really, the 4s are good for people who lose them a lot. Because I know people who lose one or more of them on a regular basis. I
think the vast majority of people just have regular AirPods. Like, I think AirPods Pro is not the common AirPods that are out there. I see AirPods everywhere. Everybody has them. I mean, you see the white earbuds in people's ears all over the place. So they're extremely popular. So AirPods. So what sets apart AirPods Pro? It's more of these health features, including they can work like a medical grade hearing aid. This was a new thing that the not FAA, not FCC, the FDA approved last year. I think it was that you could have non-prescription hearing aids out there over the counter like AirPods Pro. So they can do that, and they also do hearing tests. You can do that with your iPhone or with the AirPods Pro. Like the Apple Health study, Apple Hearing study. So you can participate in medical studies using the Health app. I'm actually in the Apple Hearing study, so I know how the hearing test works. You want to be in a very quiet place when you do it, without fans and other noise. And it's how do I put it? It can be a little disheartening when you're older to take the hearing test, because there's a large part of the time when you're supposed to be hearing something and you're not, and it feels a little, where did my hearing go?
I can tell you right now, my husband is getting a pair of these for Christmas because he is one of those people at our age who is still not admitting to the fact that he can't hear everything. Although he does say, yes, I don't have hearing in my right ear. It happened a long time ago. But now it's just, I talk to him and he'll just turn around and go, what? Okay. So, and he listens, he's got his own AirPods for his iPad. But I told him, I said, I think this could be a game changer for you because you don't want to yet. You could put one in and people will think you're, have it on for your phone, yet you could hear the room. And you might hear what people are telling you at work, or me at home. Especially,
like my father-in-law has hearing issues, and he's got hearing aids, but the hearing aids don't do the things like the AirPods Pro do, which is cut down on room noise and allow create more clarity. That's the important thing, is the clarity to reduce, like when he's in a crowded restaurant or he just doesn't go out anymore because he can't hear anything. All he hears is noise and he can't have a conversation. And so that's what these will do. And one of the nice things is when you take the hearing test, it creates a hearing profile for you. And that hearing profile will improve your ability to hear across all of your devices that you're logged into. So your Apple TV, your phone, your Mac, your iPad, all of those things will use that new profile. And so like when you're watching a show, I can't tell you how often when I'm watching like a show and I have to like back up because I like rewind 3 times because I don't know what they're saying. I have the subtitles on all the time now because that's what we have to do. The sound, and it's not just old. Young people do this too. The sound in shows is so muddy these days. I don't know what's wrong with sound editing in Hollywood, but
well, the only thing I need to find out is if I can remember 2 sets of AirPods can listen in on an Apple TV at the same time. Correct?
Right. I don't do that
I think
myself, but I think that's possible. Yeah.
Right. Because that would be the big game changer. He can't hear very well, and I'm always jacking up the TV sound, and we're still not hearing it right. So if this works for him, I don't mind putting one in and listening to it because my hearing's not bad, but it's nice to know that there's something here in the interim before I have to go get, because I know people who've gone straight from I can't hear anything to buying very expensive hearing aids, then trying to pair them with their phones and their Apple TVs, and it gets very, very muddy.
It gets complex,
crazy.
muddy. Yeah.
It gets too complex. That's a great word.
Yep. So again, not a lot new in the AirPods. Some things that are interesting. The hearing stuff for the AirPods Pro, they said will be this fall, so it'll be available in the software update. Still waiting on the FDA approval on that, I guess. And so that brings us to the phones. And I have to say, with the phones, and we'll get into the particular features that they've added, but they spent a lot of time talking about Apple Intelligence, sort of rehashing what we discussed back at the WWDC earlier this summer. So there wasn't a lot new with regard to Apple Intelligence, and they're really doubling down on the AI stuff. So the iPhone 16 is, so in order to access the Apple Intelligence features, you're going to need an iPhone 15 Pro or either the 16 or 16 Pro. So those phones will be able to do these features. It's because so much of it happens on device, and those phones have the power, the beef in it to get there. So let's talk about the 16. The 16 nothing. So you have a 16 and a 16 plus. You have 2 sizes still. So it's the same sizes, 6.1 inches and 6.7. The action button now comes to the 16 that was only on the Pro last year. And we get this new button, the camera control button. This is a kind of a fancy little camera shutter that also does partial press. Like anyone ever used an old SLR or DSLR, there was like this, you press the shutter button part way, it'll do the focusing and that sort of stuff. It's the same sort of thing. So it's a partial push on it. You get some haptic feedback. You can slide back and forth across it to zoom and that sort of thing. I'm sure all the TikTokers and the Instagram reelers will love this zoom in and out feature. We're going to see lots of zooming in those videos.
Oh gosh.
It also
seasick.
Yeah, I know. It also gives access to some new visual Apple Intelligence features. So you press the button and you'll be able to, point it at things and it will tell you, what breed the dog is and
that
what
can
the
be
plant
handy.
is.
That can really be handy for some things. And what I'm wondering is, for me, will I be able to point it at something and get translations? Because I work in an environment that I need that. Sometimes.
I think they actually even demonstrated. Yeah, I think they demonstrated in translation stuff. But in a lot of the stuff you can already do it, but you do it like once you've taken the picture, or like you have to go into the app. This was removing steps so that you just it's a touch on the side, and that's going to be the interesting thing. So that camera control button looks interesting. You can already take a picture using one of the volume buttons. I can never remember which one.
I can't either. You're not alone.
Yes, and it's where they place it makes it feel like a real camera. You're like holding it up, and your finger falls naturally on the location of it. So
because half the time I'm moving my finger, and so I'm moving the phone at the same time, and it doesn't work.
Yeah. And a bunch of stuff that was in the Pro last year have come down to the regular one, some of the graphic stuff, and there's a lot of, sort of technical stuff that's coming down. A couple of things though, related to the camera, 48 megapixel main camera, which I think might be the same as the 15. I'm not sure. But they have 2x telephoto. They have there's a new ultra wide lens. There's a new ultra wide format. And they've realigned the lenses to be vertical. When you're holding the phone vertically, the lenses are vertical so that when you hold it sideways, they're binocular. They're like your eyes for taking spatial video. And that's something that was only in the 15 Pro last year. So that'll be nice. Spatial video for the future use in Apple Vision Pro. Looking forward, someday these headsets will be ubiquitous. We'll all have them so that someday we can go back and look at our old videos from before we had the headset and watch them in this 3D format, I suppose, or our kids or grandkids or whatever.
I'm so glad they're thinking ahead. I've noticed that they've jumped the chip from a 16 to an 18, and I'm wondering if that's evening with the M2 and the M4s in the computers. The M3 because it was kind of there as a flash. If you blinked, you missed it, and now they're up to M4. So I'm wondering if there's a correlation there.
Yeah, my guess is the M3 A17 chip was not up to snuff to what they want to do with the AI stuff.
Right.
And so that's why we've jumped a generation. They've sort of, I feel like Apple got caught flat-footed with the AI bursting on the scene, and that's why it's going to take so long to roll out all this Apple Intelligence stuff. Yeah. None of this is going to be available right away. And they're talking about rolling it over the next year. I feel like they were hoping to do this in a year or more, have more of these phones out that could do all this stuff before they introduce the features. I feel like they got caught flat-footed and needed to jump ahead.
But from a marketing standpoint, this could really work for them. Instead of giving all of us a phone with all of these features at once, and we're going to be spending lots of time trying to figure it out and getting totally frustrated, you get a phone that, it does these certain things. Now we're going to start rolling these out. And of course, some of the Android people are already laughing at us, but still, I would rather have it rolled out. So I know I've got something to look forward to, and I can master something before I take on the next upgrade. So
here's this one feature. Yeah. Right.
I hope this works for them because sometimes the tortoise approach is better than the hare.
Sure. One of the things that they mentioned I liked is that removing wind noise from videos when you take a video. That I've run into that. When you're doing outdoor videography, you run into that a lot.
And not just outdoor. If you happen to have a camera next to a window and all of a sudden a breeze blows by or a truck goes by, you can that sound is going to get muted. And I kind of like that idea.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, a lot of this seems to be aimed at, again, the TikTok, Instagram crowd where you want people to be able to take these videos and post them without having to have extra equipment. You could buy a wireless microphone to wear on your lapel, but this obviates the need for that.
It's more stuff.
So that's more stuff. So, and then the prices are the same. I don't think they really changed the prices. $799 starts at $799 for the 16 and $899 for the Plus. Then you have the Pro, and there's a lot of technical stuff that they talked about. They have slightly larger screen sizes, 6.3 and 6.9. So that's a big phone.
I'm getting very nervous with that because again, I watch my pockets, and if you keep expanding I can't buy a large one, even though I can get my hands around it. And I know a lot of women say, that's too, but I see a lot of women with the large ones. So please. But if I still can't be getting it into pockets now because now it's a little bit bigger, this really drives me nuts because I don't carry a pocketbook.
Right. And they said it's not like a 1/4 inch bigger all around. They've made the bezels smaller. So it's probably slightly bigger physically, but you're right. There is a limit to how big we can make these phones.
And that means another case.
Well, I think you need another case anyway because of the camera control button. There's a big issue there. In fact, I'm not sure how any third-party cases will work with it because you got to be able to physically touch it.
And that's going to be a problem for me because in the wintertime, okay, it's a first world problem and it's just me. But in the wintertime, I tend to have a case with a cover on it because it just gets icky, or if I drop it in the snow, or it just gets icky. In the summertime, I'll have a case that's open with no problem. So at least this gives me a chance to get the open case and then wait for somebody to come out with the closed case. It's an older boomer first world issue. I get it.
You could tell these things are designed in California too, because a lot of this stuff doesn't work when you're wearing gloves, which you have to do in large portions of this country for large portions of the year. And so, like, the button is the camera control button is a physical button. You press it, but the capacitive bits of it, the sliding back and forth, that requires bare skin. And there are times I don't want my bare skin out in the cold.
In 30-degree weather or below.
Right, exactly. So that's a bit of an issue. Nevertheless, the iPhone 16 Pro, I was looking at, what's new? So they get some new colors. They have the camera control button. They have this, to talk about this Fusion 48 megapixel Fusion camera, which is just marketing speak for. You can do a little more with it. There is a 5x telephoto still, slightly better than last year's. So it's not just digital; it's a physical telephoto, which is nice. So, it's it's slightly better. They have this tetraprism lens thingamabob thing, which was only on the Max last year, but now it's on both models. Okay. When I looked at it last year, I said, does this lens make enough of a difference for me to pony up for the Max? And it didn't. I'm like, I don't know why. I mean, it takes great photos regardless. So I don't know that I need it.
It's interesting that my husband said something interesting last night. He said, I look at phones and I only use them for 2 or 3 reasons. Making a phone call, texting, because now he has a lot of people who text, and maps. He said, other than that, I don't.
Well, that's a very boomer thing.
I know it is. It is. Now come to me, who's the same boomer.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't working or doing a lot of video stuff in video, not portrait, not pictures, but video, I probably could work with the regular iPhones. But I need the Pro because the difference in production is jarring, and that telephoto lens does make a difference. When you're making when you're doing even video, and not just taking pictures. But there's still one feature that the Pro has that the regular one doesn't have, and okay, this is totally me. The always on feature. I need an alarm clock that's always on that I can see in the middle of the night. And you can't do that with the regular one.
The regular one doesn't do always on still?
No.
Oh, okay.
It never did, which is why I bought a Pro in the first place.
Right.
But these don't do it. The 13 doesn't do it. Touch it, it's there, and that's it.
Right.
But only the Pros do that.
That reminds me that they mentioned with the Apple Watch is the always on feature. There's like they've done always on for a while, but when you look at your watch until it lights up, you don't see a second hand. It's a small thing, but they've added in the second hand on the always on for the Apple Watch if you're using an analog style display. And I'm like, it's a small thing, but there have been times where I'm like, and I have to wake it up in order to see the seconds. So, I mean, I wouldn't discount that. No, I agree that the always on is an interesting, and I don't know if I would say a deal breaker, but it certainly adds to why I would get the Pro over the regular one. You mentioned, by the way, your husband's top 3. I would say for anyone under 30, I don't think making phone calls would even be in their top 5 reasons that they have a phone. And probably number 1 is number 1 will be texting. Number 2 will be photos. These are essentially cameras that also do other things for a lot of people. That I would say. So it's interesting to see how Apple has to sell to the whole audience. That they really
They have made it so that they do have something for everyone. So I think 3/4 of the buyers, the 16 is perfectly fine for them, or the 16 Max or whatever. Yeah. But the Plus, sorry. Yeah. But the Pro is really for folks who either need it for picture taking, video, it's something that you could actually, you use your phone a lot. And these are the folks like myself that are going to use them until I retire, and then I can just worry about the always on feature.
I think the 16 Pro is for people who, if they had a 16 regular, might go out and buy a DSLR or a Micro Four Thirds camera or something along those lines, where it gives just enough of the better ability to take videos and photo that you would want from a better camera with lens. Right. It's just that next bit. And so I think that's one of the things that justifies it for me. I would, if I had to be just on the 16, I'd probably still be using an SLR, a DSLR, or a Micro Four Thirds camera to do that next level of taking video or taking photos. I'm very happy to have that. One of the things, the last thing to mention about the Pro feature that it has is it also does spatial audio recording to go along with spatial photos and spatial video. The regular 16 doesn't do spatial audio recording, which means it's like stereo except all around you. When you turn your head, you'll hear it in different directions as you're in the Vision Pro. So the videos you take with spatial audio on the 16 will not have sound in the correct places. It'll just be regular sound. Whereas the Pro gives you that. Because
it doesn't have the 4 mics, studio quality
the 16
mics
doesn't.
that the Pro does. And that, for me, for church, is a game changer, because I can't mic people sometimes. I have to have as much good sound quality as possible in an echoey room. So this is going to be very, very good.
That's good. Yeah. So they talked a lot about Apple Intelligence. I don't know. We need to rehash too much of that. Just a lot of the same things that they talked about.
Yeah. All I want to say is, because I had a couple of notes on that. I'll believe Siri is better when I hear it. So, I've just been critical of Siri for a long time. And one thing, because of where I work and who I work with, will the Portuguese be Brazilian or continental? This is a huge problem within the Portuguese community, where Brazilian really is not only just a different dialect, it's almost a different language. Yeah. So you just can't say it's Portuguese and it starts speaking at you in Brazilian. You're like, whoa, I don't understand what you're saying. So someone needs to, maybe I need to write Tim Apple and say, look, can we
Brazil is Brazil is a much more populous country. There are many more people who speak Brazilian Portuguese than speak Portugal Portuguese. I mean, that's just the fact, right? I mean, so I would guess that they would lean toward Brazilian. Well, I mean, just in general, in the markets that they're selling to.
Right. I do understand.
Brazil is a much larger country. So I'd be surprised if they didn't accommodate that. It's a big market for them. Yeah. In fact, they have a manufacturing plant for phones.
Well, I just want them to distinguish. Yeah. And I want both of them to be there. I just don't want one favored over the other. You say Portuguese and it's Brazilian. There's a difference with that. Just a little.
Like Mexican Spanish versus Spain Spanish, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Right.
There's big difference. I don't know if the difference is as big, but yeah, I get it. And then they finally, the iOS 18, Mac OS 15, which is what? Sonoma? I forget which one it is now.
Sequoia?
Sequoia. iPad OS 18, all that stuff. All those are coming out on September 16th. So just a few days.
Right after we're finished with this podcast, I'm putting it on my devices. I waited.
The beta.
I'm putting the betas. Yeah. I'm putting the betas on now. Yeah, they've got to be. They're secure enough. My iPad is secure enough, so I can do it now.
I've done the beta on my iPad. For in the last month or so, there was an update that called it iPad OS 18. It didn't call it a beta.
No, it
yesterday.
Didn't.
So I don't know if they rolled out the Gold Master.
I think it is the Gold Master.
Yeah, so you don't have to wait till everybody else does it, I guess. And that's it. That's today's announcements. So, Joanne, in the end, what is it you're going to buy this time?
This time, barring any more new cars, it's the iPhone 16 Pro, not the Max, but the 16 Pro. Definitely. Okay. Sooner than later.
Do you have a favorite color that you want to get?
Oh, don't talk to me about colors. They took the blue away. Now
I noticed.
Why can't pros have color?
They're kidding.
Why can't we have color?
Here are the colors: black, white, natural, right, which is titanium, and desert.
Whoopee!
Could be any more bland?
That's because pros are bland.
Yeah, the 16s gets ultramarine, which is basically purple, teal, pink, rose gold, white, and black. Come on,
seriously.
I usually will go for black or a dark color anyway. It's just the thing, but give people a little more choices than that. It's kind of silly that the Pro is this bland colors.
Yeah.
All right. So as for me, I'm out this year. Nope. I'm not going to be getting anything. I'm fine. Knock on wood that things don't break and they have to. But I will tell you, I've started doing a thing which kind of feels like a new phone, which is I've started carrying my phone around the house without a case. In fact, because my usual case is the Apple Clear MagSafe case, but it feels like a new phone. It's smaller, it's thinner, and the kids kept going, "Dad, did you get a new phone?" I'm like, "No, it's just doesn't have the case on it. It's kind of like getting a new phone for free."
I can't do it. My regular Clear case is a spec. And it has ridges on it, so I can hold on to it. So I'll probably be getting another one of those the minute they allow it. But I drop it too many times, or it falls off my desk or something. That I'd probably need a new phone if I kept doing that, or at least a screen. Yeah. So no.
Well, I'm still gonna put the case on it when I leave the house, but around the house, I feel like knock on wood again. That I'm good there. So we'll see. All right. So that's enough. Yeah. So that's enough about the Apple stuff. And before we move on to our headlines, I want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Naomi S., Dan H., Renee S., Centex S., and James C. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So let's talk about some headlines. This one has caught my eye, which is that Audible is going to start generating AI voice replicas of select audiobook narrators. So here's the idea. They already have a synthetic voice that people who self-publish books on the Amazon Direct to Kindle or whatever they call it store can use, but not many people use it, which probably most synthetic voices are not great anyway. But what they're going to do now is take some of their most popular narrators, people who are the well-known audiobook narrators, and give them the option of enrolling in this program where they will create a virtual or AI version of their voice that authors can choose to use. And then the narrator gets, without having to actually narrate the book, will get right of refusal. They can say, I don't want my voice to be used for this version of Mein Kampf or something. Or they also get an opportunity to make corrections of pronunciation or whatever to make sure that the quality is there that they want, a minimum amount of quality. And then they get a portion of the sales of that book for very, relatively little work. Some people are still wary of this because it's still not real voices. Other people say it makes many more books available to those who are vision impaired and or otherwise have issues with reading, printed words. What do you think, Joanne? How do you feel about this?
I still see abuses here, or somebody clicking a voice and the narrator says no, but they find a way around it. I see hacking issues that could happen. I don't know. I think I agree with wanting to have more accessibility for folks. I'm just wondering if we're still trying to shortchange creatives in order to do it now that we have AI. And I can see the dangers of it.
I could see, they're probably not, it doesn't say, but I'm almost guarantee they get paid less for the virtual because there's less work involved. They don't actually have to read every word. On the other hand, there's only so many hours in the day, and this gives them more that they could do. It's not taking away the real reading that they can do, the real narrating that they can do. So it's additional. I as long as it's done correctly, I think it could be okay. I think it's all within, the Amazon Audible system. So that it's not like someone could take the voice and use it. I mean, people could create fake voices now, of anybody. They could have, Barack Obama read their book, or heck, they could get Jimmy Akin to read their book or me, because there's enough hours of our voices
Content
out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'd have the same recourse that you would today, which is you could sue people for misuse and misrepresentation, that sort of thing. Still, I think the way they're doing this, I'm generally in favor. I'd like to hear from narrators, how they feel about it. I think a lot of narrators are still figuring it out, whether this works for them. But I think in general, I think it's more positive than negative. We're all still wary of companies using AI to substitute for human beings. Right. And I think it's right to be wary of that. And I think these companies need to walk softly and deliberately in doing these things. So I think it's probably a net positive.
Well, and I'm also wondering I don't know if Amazon could do this. It just kind of popped into my head the second time I've read this now. If this is for this is only for self-publishing books, correct? Right. All right. Yes. Could a self-publisher read their own, submit it to Amazon and say, can I use my own voice on this? Because I'm sure there was some published authors who could actually read well. And then you'd still have a real person reading the book in the voice that they intend for their listener or for their reader to hear the story.
So I think they can do it. They can already do it today. I'm pretty sure. You could just submit an audio track. I don't know. I'm sort of making an assumption, I guess. But
I'm just wondering, because that could cut down on. I'm sure there are still people who read and in the it was a dark and stormy night. I'm sure we still get those folks. But there are other people who can read and read with a lot of imagination and a lot of dramatic. Although.
They said even with the virtual voice, the synthetic voice tool that they've had available for the past year, they say in the article, 96% of self-published titles on Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing service do not have audiobook companion to it. They don't have an audiobook version. That's a lot.
That is a lot. Yeah.
I mean, I think a lot of people, reading an audiobook is a particular skill, and I think until you realize how much work is involved. I mean, even for me, when I do voiceover work for Mysterious World or something, gosh, I don't even do nearly the amount of a book, and it can be grueling, because you've got to really you got to say exactly what the words are on the page. You can't vamp, you can't call an audible, whatever. No pun intended.
That was a good one.
You got to say what's there, and when you flub, you got to go back and redo it, and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's a lot more work than people think to do it yourself. Whereas this takes a lot of the work out of it. I don't know. I like the idea that we could get more books to have audio companions, and I think that's really the big positive for me.
I think I think I'd go with that. I'm just still being a creative, wondering about what the ramifications will be down the road.
And that's good to be wary. Yeah.
Right.
Well, especially given our next headline, which is from Fast Company, the underground world of black market AI chatbots is thriving. So while we're all worried about ChatGPT, being used to make, student homework assignments, the underground black market dark web, sorts of folks are out there making their own large language models to do the things that ChatGPT and, Claude and all the other ones that are out there, Grok, and won't do. They'll no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Well, these ones will, and you can pay for them. So, for example, this was a study that was done by let's see, what was it? A study done by a university. I forget which one. It's in there. I think Indiana State or something. And so they have two categories: outright uncensored LLMs that'll do whatever you tell it to do.
Yeah.
And those that jailbreak commercial LLMs out of the guardrails using prompts. So it's like, for example, sometimes you ask ChatGPT to do a thing and it'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not able to do that." And then there's a way of phrasing the prompt to get it to do the thing you just said it wouldn't do. They're finding ways to kind of prevent that more and more, but it's a bit like hacking the LLM, just with the right phrase. So what kinds of things are they, are people paying, using this to do? Writing phishing emails? Because honestly, after decades of spam phishing emails, you get a sense of, when you get an email, this is written by someone who either doesn't know English or it's just obvious spelling errors, typos, misphrasings, not the way someone who understood the subject would write it. If they use a chat bot, they might be able to get around that and start making more convincing phishing emails.
But I mean, if we've been trained, especially with phishing emails, to always look at the sender bot, drop down. I got something from a reputable company, Parallels, and I read it and I was like, okay, so I just clicked this and download the new I had to go look at the top and see, and then I had to go into the website to make sure that it was. So, we get rid of the Nigerian princes, but other than that.
Well, right. I mean, it's not that it becomes impossible, but it just makes it hard. Like you got to be more cautious with things because the emails are better written. You never click on a link for, that comes in. You look at what's the link taking me to. Does it take me to the actual site? That sort of stuff. That stuff becomes more important because it's less obvious now. And I think that's what it is. The other thing that the example they gave was using these illicit bots to produce malware.
Yes.
To break into sites, to attack sites, to that sort of thing. And they were finding that they were using these, they were able to produce correct code around 2/3 of the time, that get around antivirus tools and that sort of thing to break into stuff. And again, you can use ChatGPT or Gemini or one of these tools to create code, but if you try to get it to create code that does something unethical or illegal or illicit, it will say, "No, I won't." They could, but they won't. And that's the big difference. The only thing that prevents them from doing it is that they've been given a rule not to. And so these illicit chatbots won't. So I think it's just, I'm not sure there's much you can do about this except be wary and to recognize that every advance in technology comes with it a good side and a bad side.
Exactly.
And then just every tool a hammer can be used to build a house or to kill somebody,
Right. And if people thought that it was always going to be, these chatbots are going to be good and helpful. No, somebody's always going to make one that's going to do something else because people have, it's the It's the original sin theory. We all have
fallen human nature.
It's all there. It's all, so you've got your good and your evil. And I just want to stay away from these.
It does kind of scare me a little bit in the sense of, I don't think we're ever going to get to the artificial generalized intelligence, the commander Data of Star Trek sort of. It's like a sentient person. But if we did, that's the Skynet thing, I think, will not come from a commercial chatbot. It'll come from somebody building one illegally or something along those lines. That's something that scares me. But I think that's a very small chance.
Right.
And then our final headline is interesting to think about. The headline is from the Wall Street Journal. Gen Zers or computer whizzes, just don't ask them to type. And what it's pointing out is that while Gen Z, which is people born between 1997 and 2012, while they are extremely tech savvy, no one's been teaching them how to use a keyboard. They've basically keyboarding skills haven't been taught to Gen Zers. Millennials were probably the last generation that got keyboarding and typing classes in school. So a lot of these young people get set down in front of a computer and they get asked to, type something, and it's hunt and peck, which really, kind of undermines their tech savviness because they're not able to use the tools. They can do on a phone, they can whiz around that phone keyboard like crazy, but they just can't do it on a regular, laptop or desktop keyboard.
Well, this is the same thing that happened to cursive. Cursive,
right.
It was interesting because I know we were discussing this beforehand, that I wrote a lot of my notes down because I was watching part of it at my office, and then switched to the keyboard when I got home and could watch the rest of it. I can do those two things and fluidly move between them. But there's a lot of people who can't read cursive anymore because they don't use it. And now we're going to have the same problem with typing because, yes, we can touch everything or talk to it, but we don't know how to type it. Yeah, all of this is disengaging us because our brain takes in this information when we do it. More so cursive, but
right. I think there's two things I think about that. Like, one, it's even worse than the cursive situation because with cursive you weren't interacting with the technology for everyday life, which is computers are basic technology. You need to be able to type in order to do basic things. And we are at a sort of an inflection point or a transition point where, like you mentioned, eventually we won't need to type. We'll be able to just talk, and it won't be as bad as Siri. And eventually we'll get to the point where they will be more conversational. We'll be able to do. I think we'll always have a thing where we'll need to type a little bit, but we have. I think we've stopped teaching typing too soon. I think we need to get back to it.
I would agree with that.
And get kids to type more. There's a weird part of this story where it talks about this young woman who's 18 who it was where is it something with iPads or the 16-year-old girl who types on an iPad or tablet. I'm trying to find it in the article now.
Yeah, I am too.
Yeah, so it says the sense is the ubiquity of tablets in schools make it easier for Gen Z to avoid computer keyboards altogether. It says students prefer the screens on their iPads, essentially bigger versions of their smartphones, to physical keyboards. The keyboard on an iPad is you type on it like you type on a physical keyboard. So I don't understand what the difference is there is, unless you're holding the iPad in portrait mode and using your thumbs. I mean, that's the big difference between a phone and a regular keyboard is thumb typing.
But could they be pulling apart the keyboard like we know we can and doing that with thumbs?
I mean, that's the big difference is it's thumb typing versus all fingers typing.
Right.
I guess I think that's I would think that would be rare. I don't know. It seems kind of an odd distinction. Yeah.
And first of all, typing on an iPad, typing on glass is definitely different tactile sensation than typing on a keyboard. So, so if if they get frustrated with that, there's a good reason. But again, I think you're right. We've stopped teaching typing in schools so that they, just like we've stopped cursive, but now they're bringing cursive back. So I think it's time to bring the typing back.
I think so. I have an admission to make. I never learned to type. I was a hunt and peck typist for a long time, and now I'm I'm not a home key typist. I can mostly type without looking at the keys. I just kind of, and after 50 years, I know where everything is instinctively. But I make a lot of typos. I make a lot of errors. I'm constantly like frustrated because I look at some I type and like, oh, I mistyped that or whatever. And I think it's because I never learned to actual type.
And I'm old enough to say I learned how to type on a very old manual typewriter when I was, 10, 12, 14. And I continue to type fast now, but at my age, I really need to be a little bit more careful because there are way more typos because I think I'm getting all the keys and I'm not. Only because I'm just getting older.
When I was around 12 or 13, my mom she enrolled me in a summer school class for typing on those IBM Selectrics.
Oh, yes.
The spinny ball. But I have to admit, I kind of skipped out on those classes all that summer, and I didn't go.
I kind of wish I into confession time here.
Yeah, I was taking a computer class at the same time, and I was spending more time in the computer lab using the computer than the typing because I was like, I don't want to use a typewriter. I want to use a computer. So
it's the same
regrets.
thing.
Well, at the time it wasn't. The computer was much cooler. They should have had Mavis Beacon teaching me typing.
Oh, I remember that too.
Yep. All right. So those are our headlines. Let's move on to our picks of the week. And Joanne, what's your pick this week?
Well, my pick this week follows up with the last time I was here talking about the seminar that I was going to take on faith and AI. And I learned all kinds of lovely things on how to use AI responsibly in a faith-based culture, meaning the church. Okay. And they showed a couple of different AIs, and I really gravitated to Claude because for some reason, Claude was a little bit easier to use, it would not do things that ChatGPT would. When we talk about putting a moral code in these things or directions on what not to do, I think they took bear with me for a second. They took ChatGPT, I forget I think it was Gemini and Claude, and they asked it to do figure out a game scenario where you might have to kill a dog during it. Okay. ChatGPT would give you all the ways to get around doing that. But then in the end, if you had to, here was how you did it. Gemini would give you everything, including that, just as here's what you can do. But Claude said, no, we do not believe in, harming animals. So here is every scenario that you could possibly use. And if they don't work, you need to become friends with the dog. So it was just a very interesting way they did it. So I said, okay, this Claude, if I'm going to use it for church work, this is something I think I would rather have than ChatGPT, because again, asking ChatGPT to do something like help me out, write a bulletin blurb, it came out differently than if I asked Claude to do it. And it also changed with, and this is where I had my last rant on Brazilian versus continental. I put into ChatGPT, translate this into Portuguese. It immediately translated it into Brazilian. And I said, no, I want continental. And it said, we may have a problem with that. I was like, okay.
That's weird.
Well, but then they did it. Please bear with us. In Claude, I put in immediately, put this into continental Portuguese. And it came out differently. I showed it to someone who's a native speaker, and they said, whoa, this one is well translated, meaning the Claude one. The ChatGPT was still using partially Brazilian, partially continental, and this person could tell the difference. So I am, for those of you who are in faith-based work, if you're looking for an AI that has some sort of a parameter, moral parameter to it, and it can also do some of the things like I had it write a prayer of the faithful. Okay, now this was a test. I had it write a prayer of the faithful in the style of someone who is already deceased, who used to write books on this, and told it exactly what I wanted. It came out pretty good. And not that I used it, but I was able to look at it and say, okay, this could work, this doesn't, this could work. It would save time. It's been writing my bulletin blurbs, which takes a lot of time sometimes. So I'm a fan.
I use AI every day for the work on these podcasts. I use Whisper AI to create transcripts of shows, and then I feed that into ChatGPT and tell it to summarize for me the high points, and then I use that to write the descriptions. I don't just take the description from them, but summarize, find the important things that are most interesting, that someone listening would be most interested in. Someone who's a fan of Star Wars would find most interesting in this episode. Boom, boom, boom. Because I want it to be the descriptions to be as compelling as possible. But I never used straight output from them. That's the thing. And I think that's an important element with any AI is use it to inspire, to help you brainstorm as a brainstorming tool, as a way to get you started. They're fantastic. Father Roderick von Hogan was saying in one of his podcasts that he uses it to help him prioritize his work. He says, I've got all of these things to do over the next 2 days. And then he gives it parameters and says, help me figure out which ones I should prioritize over others. And given the need for time or, that sort of deadlines. And he says he uses it as like a sounding board almost. And that's another great way to use it.
I had a pastor hand me, this is the new baptismal form we would like to use. Can you put it in a Google format? And I kind of looked at it and I said, okay, Claude, how can you do that? And it did it. I just had to move a couple things around, but it actually said, okay, you do it this way. And then this is how I said, okay, I'm not familiar with Google Forms, which I am, but I'm not. I said, how do you do that? And it explained to me how to do it. Here, go there, do this, do that. I'm a fan. It's $20. You can use it for free, $20 a month if you want to get expanded versions of it. It's also good for enterprise, for groups. And I just think it's a little less. I think it will do more in this part of the world than a straight chat GPT would.
I like that the Pro gives you the ability to put in documents, like to upload files. That's an important thing. I don't think ChatGPT's, even the paid version, lets you do that yet, which is not great.
This is Anthropic. Anthropic are the people who do this, and I guess they came from ChatGPT. Am I correct?
Right. They used to work there and went out on their own. So I just think it's great to have lots of these, that there's different models, to different purposes. And it's good to see there's a variety out there of tools. So that's good. All right. So my pick is actually a pretty simple one. It's called Mapper for iOS and macOS. And it does one thing very well, which is it automatically redirects Google Maps links that you get on, like, say, the Google search page to Apple Maps. So you click on it, it opens in Apple Maps instead of in Google Maps, whether you're on a Mac or on your iPhone. I use Apple Maps for directions almost exclusively now. I know that's the old thing about how Apple Maps was terrible when it first came out, and that's true. It is vastly improved. Like a lot of things, Apple gets a bad rap because their first version of it is bad. And then they iterate and they get better over time. And I think Apple Maps is good. The thing I love about it is it puts it on my wrist, on my watch, the directions. But I'm often Googling, directions. And so it was always a pain to have to, retype the location into, Apple Maps and get it there. Well, this way I can just click the link and it opens up in Apple Maps. I think that's really great. So, Mapper for iOS and macOS. It's in the App Store, and I forget if it's free or not. I should have looked that up ahead of time. I think it's free.
Good.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very
something I could
simple.
use.
It's a very simple, extension. Safari extension. It's for Safari. You have to use it in Safari.
Right.
But it's a very simple extension. So definitely, I would use it. And those are our picks, and that's our show. What did you think of our discussion? Anything you had to say? What are you buying from Apple this year, if anything? Let us know. If you would like us to talk about different companies' announcements, product announcements, let us know, and we'll consider doing that in the future as well. So you can contact us by going to sqpn.com/technology or visit us on the StarQuest Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Send us an email to technology@sqpn.com or visit the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/Discord. You'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at starquest.fm/TEC270. Remember to like the Secrets of Technology wherever you find us on social media, including Facebook, on X, where we're at SQPN, and leave us comments there too. Until next time, Joanne Mercier, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Technology.
Thanks, Dom.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.